Well, g'day, beautiful Freedom family. Hoping you are doing very well, making sure my microphone is turned on and all the things are beeping and swerving in the way they are meant to be doing. Hope you've had a great day. It's been a big day. There is a lot of stuff coming out if you have eyes open and ears open to see and hear the real news that is being put out in the world. Most of it is being put out through Telegram. So if you're not using Telegram, well, you'll be struggling a little bit. But there is a lot coming out, and there is a lot coming up in tonight's show. First of all, though, we're going to talk to a man who's going to spend a bit of time with us tonight. He is an exceptionally busy human being running around this country at the moment, setting up what I believe is one of the most important organisations in Australia, despite what mainstream media from time to time call a right-wing leaning organisation or a far-right organisation. Nothing could be further from the truth. And if the mainstream media are telling you that, then you know it's a lie. Good evening, Darren Bergworth from My Place. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, Carl. How you going, mate?
Good. Well, you and I have had a couple of chats over the last few days. You've had a couple of successes recently. There is a lot of talk about people going to court, being accosted in court, particularly in Victoria, over a range of stupid fines and other sorts of bullshit. You have been caught up in that for a couple of years now, dating back to Victorian state election times, where you had posters put up on buildings around Frankston and whatnot. One of those was still up. I think the council was trying to take you to court for that. Last week, you were back in court again. Tell us as much of it as you want to or about, but you had a bit of a win. Is that right?
In my opinion, I think I had a good win. But first of all, just to correct the far right thing, we like to be called right so far rather than far right. But as far as the court goes, yeah, the other cases kind of disappeared. They ended up giving me a $400 fine, which is about 200 odd grand less than what the council Muppet wanted the judge to do. So that was it wasn't even worth kind of appealing that.
No.
Once again, it's a fine that they've issued, but they ain't getting any money for it. So they can issue as many fines as they like, because the further we delve into this, and the amount of cramming I've done in the last probably, and it was a cram. I left it for 2.5 months and then acted two weeks before I had to go to court. But what I've learned in that 2 weeks, and what I continue to learn, is it's really, really simple, and it doesn't matter which way you look at it, it all comes back to our constitution, and it's a contract. It's a contract between we the people and the United Kingdom, the Parliament, the government, and the Crown, and no one can change that contract. And I think more and more people are starting to realise just how significant that is. In 1973, obviously it happened before that, but 73 was the big turning point with Whitlam. And obviously, we are a constitutional monarchy. Yep. That's it. And it all goes back to the Commonwealth of Australia, Constitution Act 1901. And if we claim that and own that, and we can educate the powers to be that is the case, and that's all I'm trying to do. I had a 406-page notice of constitutional matter that I sent to the 8 attorney generals around Australia, in all the states and nationally, and I had a 400-odd page affidavit in support for that. Now, when I went in March, it was a hearing. And the 2 previous cases I'd been to with friends of mine, there was no mention. It was just bang, straight into the hearing. They weren't really prepared for that. It was found in favour of the council, as the council's lawyer basically was referencing the 1975 Victorian Constitution as their head of power, and it's already been case precedence. This is set in stone in Supreme Courts. So they were railroaded. So that was the position I was in on the 15th of March. Now, because I got a document dump from them about a week before, I explained to the judge that that I was kind of needing to get some help, and I needed it adjourned. At that point, the plaintiff's solicitor was basically saying that that's fine. He's happy for the adjournment, but when you come back to court, you will not be able to represent. You have to have someone with you. And the judge said, "Do you understand that you won't be able to speak on behalf of the company? You need to have representation." I said, "Yep, that's fine." So I rock up last Friday no representation. But I did have a suitcase full of literature, and I had a briefcase full of what do we have? 2,400 pages. So
Gee.
I had a 400-page document, notice of constitutional matter, 3 lots of that, and also my 400-page affidavit in support. So I had one for the plaintiff solicitor who didn't turn up; he was on the big screen.
Wow.
One for the court, and one for myself. So I put all of those, stacked them on the desk. I got all the Quick and Garran books out. I got the constitutional books out. I must have had 8 different reference books of knowledge with tags hanging out of all of them. I opened 2 of those to certain pages, no page in particular, just to kind of for looks.
Yep.
And I had 12 people with me. Now at that point, the clerk who was training another clerk asked if any of those people in the court were here as witnesses. I said no. No witnesses today, but they are here to gather evidence, and I'm also here to gather evidence on what happens here today. So in the end, the plaintiff's lawyer decided not to object to me representing my company, and we went through a bit of argy-bargy, and it got to the point where we've gone from a hearing, and it was listed as a hearing, to going back to a mention on the 1st of August now. So they've gone backwards as far as I'm
They've
concerned.
taken a backward step. Yep.
They have. That's definitely backwards. It was supposed to be a hearing last Friday, and it's now a mention, and they've put aside half an hour at 2:00 on the 1st of August, 7 weeks away, to establish how long we need to actually do the case, which will happen sometime in October. Now, the judge said to the plaintiff solicitor, look, this could take some time to get a court date. There has been an unprecedented rise in civil action and civil defence at the moment. No surprise there, because everyone's starting to realise that it's a pretty simple argument that we have when we go to court, and everyone's getting more confidence in what their argument is, and also they're not scared of the courts anymore, because they are just a star chamber. They're not a court of law, and
They bank on
we're
our
learning that
ignorance.
kind of stuff.
They bank
Only
on
through
our
our
ignorance.
Yep, correct. So yeah, now that we've come of age, and so anyway, that's fine. We go through that, and I put it to them as well that their 1975 Victorian Constitution is not worth the paper it's written on. I said it's assented to by the Queen of Australia, which is a fictitious character. There is no such thing, but that's only like 0.5% of the information that I've got. We've got case precedents. We've got so many different things. There's also rulings about star chambers and their lawfulness. And everything that's that they're doing is, I mean, they're all in contempt of court, basically.
Yep. So, Darren, from a layman's perspective, how hard has this been for you to acquire the knowledge you've needed to get this far?
Not that hard, really. For the amount of time, I've probably spent maybe 50 or 60 hours over the last couple of weeks. But I'm very fortunate that I've had a saviour as such, that I call the Rain Man, that has he already had all this stuff. He's put a lot of this stuff together for me. If I had to do this myself, there's no way I would have got to where I've got to. So by no means is it me. What I've learned, though, and the more I read and collaborate with him and others, the more I deeply understand how simple this is. It's the same as how simple it is for us to take back control. And I've been saying that in my speeches lately as well. If no one went to a rally, went to Canberra, came to my place, did any of that stuff, voted, but all implemented a plan to defund and to get out of the system to the nth degree that they possibly can, and were disciplined in that. If we had started doing that after the federal election last year, this would already be over. So it is that simple. It all comes back to us as individuals. And the quicker we realise that, and stop wasting our time and actually work on our mental state, on how we actually orchestrate being out of the system to the nth degree. If we could get more people on that page now, this will speed everything up. But the constitutional stuff, we've got the guys over at, and we did a Forest of the Fallen on Sunday at Lilydale Lake. There's probably 100 of us over there helping the girls set up all the pitches. I'd hate to think how many they've got now. It's probably 600 or 700 at least. And I spoke to 9 or 10 different either individuals or couples or families And I said, "Do you know what this is about?" When they're standing there reading these posters, and they didn't. And I explained it to them, and I explained it in quite a bit of depth, to the point of telling them about the depopulation plan and 500 million people and all the rest of it. And then they started telling me stories about, once they realised that all the things that were happening to people, people that they knew that were getting sick or had this issue or that issue. So they are. I can't believe how receptive. And this was the same with the police. We had 8 police there over the course of the 2 hours that I was there. They were there to support us and make sure there was no trouble. We are having regular meetings with the police in that area at the moment, and explaining stuff to them. They are actually starting to really understand what we're on about, and that what we've got, the evidence we've got, is actually factual, and there's something real in what we're telling people. So people are very receptive at the moment. We've got to be not marching in the cities, but we've got to be engaging, interacting with local communities, whether it be Forest of the Fallen, whether it be setting up a market at our local market with flyers and information. I'm just about to work on developing a flyer now on the Constitution and on the treasonous behaviour in 1973. And the treasonous behaviour of Rob Hulls in 2000, when he removed the oath of allegiance, right? And that was treason. And that's exactly why Dan Andrews has been charged with misprision of treason, because he's covered it up, because he was the chief of staff at the time that happened. Now, anyone that poo-poos that, they really need to go back and study what that contract of the 1901 Australian Constitution Act actually means. And that cannot be changed without a referendum. And it especially can't be changed after you have a referendum and we vote to stay as a constitutional monarchy. I mean, it's so blatantly obvious.
Yeah, they tried in, what was it, 83, 88 or 89, and then in 1999 with the big one where they tried to get us all to get rid of the constitutional monarchy and become a republic. Of course, that was run, and Malcolm Turnbull has been behind the Republican movement in Australia from the 80s. He's been very, very active. And it was amazing to me that he was ever able to get into the Liberal Party, gain any kind of position in there, given the way that he feels about all of this. It was always going to be something he would be working on. So, yeah, a bit distressing. It's great that we are having these sorts of interactions in the court now, though, that there are people who are around and able to give help. 2 of those blokes I met recently in central Queensland at Rockhampton, Des and Des, they do a pretty spectacular presentation, I must say. It's all about the Constitution and working along these routes, exposing the constitutional immorality, if you like, that our governments are using, and exposing their complete fake documents. This is essentially what you're doing when you go to the court as well. When you go with a suitcase full of stuff and a briefcase full of stuff, you're actually bringing the evidence into the court. You are prepared, in theory, to open up those books at the pages and say, "Read that, Your Honour." And that does tend to have something of a apoplectic effect on the judicial hierarchy. They tend to go very quiet. And then they take a backward step, go from a hearing back to a mention. So, you should be commended, mate. You're doing very well, and there are others around who are equally involved. And we've got to fight this on every level. But people need to understand the basics. And Darren, you're obviously right across it, and the people who are helping you are right across it. If you are going to go into a court and you want to fight, learn, do some study, because there are ways and means you can go into a court and protect yourself and get your point across and potentially win your case. And it doesn't have to be a big drama. What you do have to have is knowledge, and that knowledge is available. You're not going to get it from your lawyer more often than not. You're not going to get it from anything in the judicial system, because they're all part of the same team. Have you noticed, Darren, because you've been into court a bit more often than me recently, have you noticed there is a bit of support coming from the bench for you, self-representing? I know that there was a lot of resistance to it earlier, but I'm hearing from different courts around the nation that the resistance from the bench in hearing from people self-representing is lessening, and the bench is offering more support to those people. This is a very big change in direction if it is in fact actually happening. I know it's not happening everywhere, but what's your experience been?
Yeah, I don't know. They they like to act like they're friendly and you can be comfortable and let your guard down. But I think they still trying to. They're very clever in hooking you or trapping you into doing something that you don't realise is detrimental to your case. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. And I said to the guy that was helping me with this case that, look, and he was so adamant on getting so much paperwork. I said, mate, we're going to run out of time. In fact, in the end, he was going to turn up as my Mackenzie friend with all of my exhibits, and he didn't make it. So I had to do it. Had to do it on my own anyway. And I said, look, it doesn't matter how much stuff we've got. I'd rather you just take that one. I'd rather you just kind of be there and give us a hand and just worry about a certain amount because they're going to do what they're going to do, regardless of
Yeah.
what information we give them. So it's no point going over the top. Let's just get as much in as we can. He said, no, we've got to get it all in now because once you move up to the higher courts, you can't bring in new evidence and all this kind of stuff. But in the end, it was probably good that I had to kind of go through that because I gained a lot more confidence. I went in there and I just was on a mission, and I just walked in, put my suitcase down on the ground, and I just started dumping all this stuff on the desk just to kind of shove it in their face. I mean business, and I'm not here to negotiate. I'm here to make a statement. I'm here to collect evidence, and and I'll be doing the same every time I go in there because I know that I'm right, and it doesn't matter. And there are some things that I didn't have with me this time regarding Star Chamber courts and their lawfulness under our constitution. So that'll be also a part. Obviously, the oath of allegiance. No required oath, then you have no authority. There's just so many different levels where they're basically frauds, as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, we can't back down on the language we use. I think we need to go harder and actually expose them and let them know that we know, and not just me, but there's actually millions of people in this country now that know this, and it's
Yep.
only a matter of time that this whole charade comes down or gets exposed. So I think the same as what the councils are, getting many notices from all different angles at the moment. The courts are the same. They're all starting to be concerned that maybe they're not as protected as they think they might have been once before. Maybe their arrogance is kind of being softened a little bit by the amount of people that are bringing this evidence and information into the courts and the councils. And I know that Yarra Valley, they're actually got a Supreme Court writ at the moment in against the Yarra Ranges Council. That's been lodged. They're waiting for the stamp so they can serve it. And that comes back to, once again, under our constitution, our states and our councils have absolutely no authority to be dealing or talking with or negotiating with any international companies or governments or anything else. They just don't have the power to actually be able to do that. So they're operating outside of their charter as a state government and as a council or local government by doing that and by implementing United Nations agendas. They are 100% outside of their jurisdiction. So it's a whole nother level that councils are doing the wrong thing, and it's all about the knowledge and exposing this to the general population, and they're so ready to listen on so much more than just the vaccines and the fake pandemic. They're ready to listen about all the other stuff now, and we've got to take advantage of that, and we've got to get out amongst our communities and actually get this information to them in whatever way we can.
You are to be commended, and obviously the information that you are gathering, you're learning, that education is filtering down through my place because that's what my place is all about—a sharing of information, a collective growing, if you like. One of the more concerning things, and the Galactic Larrikins have just pointed this one out. I've forgotten about this. Thoughts on Rick calling out my place in Queensland being infiltrated by TAP? What are your thoughts on that?
Look, I don't know where Rick gets all his information from. I just had actually a meeting. Was it yesterday? With the guys at Jim Boomba, because there was someone in there that's quite good friends with Kent. And they were trying to work together a little bit, and so I zoomed in and I told the lady running that I had my reservations. Now I spoke to all of those people, and I'm only going on gut feeling what I had late September last year when I heard that through from Lance that they're working with certain people and certain organisations that kind of concerned me, and I told him that concerned me. I wasn't comfortable about that, and I've continually stepped back from that. Now I'm not saying that what's being told to me is factual. I've met Kent and Lance many times, and I think they're great blokes. Does that mean that they're not on the other side? Because I'm a novice at this, and I have I'm not a spy. I'm not I can be quite naive as to how friendly people are and what their intentions are, and that's exactly how they infiltrate into groups. So what I've decided to do since then, in all groups, is take a step back and just try and stay in my lane. And we're trying to keep my place in the same vein, to stay in our lane, concentrate on what we've got to do. Maybe it's a little bit early to be merging, because we still don't know who's who in the zoo.
That's
And I
exactly
think as
right.
time goes by, we will learn who the true people are and who the fakes are.
Yep.
And right now, I think if we try and rush this and bring everybody together too early, then we're probably going to fall
We're going to
flat
have
on
a
our
car
face.
crash. Yep, we're going
Yep.
to have a car crash. You think of
Yep.
5 lanes, we're all traveling along at hyper speed, and all of a sudden those 5 lanes merge into one. And unless we do it the right way, there is going to be a hell of a bingle at the end of it. And I will make a very clear statement to my place in Queensland right now. If your group is affiliated with TAP, I'll have nothing to do with you. Nothing. Couldn't care
Yep.
less. Until such a point that we are all comfortable with the agenda that TAP are running, I will have nothing to do with any My Place in Queensland. I will not support it. I will not promote it. In fact, I will actively work against it, because I believe in what Darren is doing. I don't believe in what TAP are doing. And TAP should have no place in My Place. They should fuck off and figure out their own thing, which they claim they have done, but have yet been able to prove it. So that is my problem with TAP. They say a lot, they do very little. And apparently
Look,
they're all hooked
but
up with the best people in the world.
But that's with everyone. Every single organisation I've been, part of or involved with, or talking to, I don't see a lot of difference. They still, all I ever see is this is coming, this is coming, this is coming. Talk. I don't see a lot of actual positive action of oh yeah, we should do this and we should do that. But it's all very well talking it, but if you don't walk it, if we hadn't have done what we did and I kept going on with what I was doing, I think we'd be so far behind. And I think all of those shows that still keep promoting that all this stuff's happening, I still think people need to stop waiting, because if this is a double psyop, and we're just getting led down a garden path, and no one can be 100% confident that that's not the case, what are you waiting for? I mean, for seriously, it annoys the hell out of me. To me, those shows and those people are actually holding the whole movement back, because they're actually getting more people to wait and wait for this savior, rather than go out there and be their own savior, be their own leader. I don't want to have the herd go, or the flock go, from one shepherd to another shepherd. We need a lot more shepherds and a lot less sheep, and that's
right.
what we're trying to encourage, is to be everyone to be their own leader. Do their own research. Don't jump on the first thing that's bloody looks like the bee's knees. Be strong enough to be your own person, and stay in your lane until
100%.
such time as you've only got to worry about one person. There's no need to run out and jump onto this bandwagon or that bandwagon. But
Getting a great
if you don't
example,
start
actually,
yourself,
we're getting a great example in the chat here right now. And the example that I'm going to point out is one that there are many people in the chat right now that have no idea who or what TAP is. The reason that TAP want to get involved with My Place and people like me is because we will promote them. TAP is an acronym or short name for the Australia Project. And that's as much as I'm going to tell you about it. If you have any interest in going to explore it, then on you. But I'm not going to promote them. So I refuse to promote them in any way. I have a significantly reduced level of trust. I've had some dealings with Kent, a lot of promises made, a lot of meetings to be had, and very little of any kind of impressive statement or action has come out of that. I see it as something at the moment to be very careful of, very, very careful of, because there are huge amounts of infiltration in this movement. The reason it's very difficult to infiltrate me because I'm it, right? You got to get past me. It's not getting involved with other parts of an organization. And that's where I take my hat off to you, Darren, because you've got to manage this around the country over, what, nearly 200 my places now.
No, not quite yet. We added another 7 last night, and we've got a newbies on next Monday. But I think we're about 160 at the moment. But look, we've had a bit of a slowdown. We're still trying to sort out. We've got issues, same as everyone. And I fully understand, Ricardo's position, why he doesn't want to work with anybody, because it is very hard to know.
Well,
who you
when
can
you're
work with. It becomes a full-time
paranoid
job.
as Ricardo is, yes, I can understand it.
Yeah, and not only that, but I mean what he's actually doing and who he potentially is. He has no need to, and I understand that. But I had a little bit of a different direction, and I'm trying to bring everybody together and try and blend people that may be sitting on the fence or maybe a bit nefarious, and maybe educate them into a different way of thinking, whether that be the police, whether it be the judges, whether it be the councillors, doesn't matter. But it's all about education. Not everyone in this movement, or not this movement, but in these bureaucracies, is kind of belligerent in what they're doing. They're just the same as what we are. And in the police have had free jabs. They've been stitched, and I'll keep telling them, your government has screwed you over. So they're starting to see it now. And unless you have those open lines of communication with these people that we think are the opposition or against us, you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to stay separated. So I don't adhere to that whole belligerently abusing all of those organisations. I think we've got to find there's plenty of good people in there that just are naive, the same as what we've been for the last 50 years. So, we've got to give them the benefit of the doubt to a certain point. Yes, I'm sure there are absolute pathetic scum in there that need to happen to them exactly what he says. After the proper trials and the evidence is produced, I'm sure that will happen. But I think there's more good in those organisations than there is bad. And we've got to try and get that good on side and educate them to a point where they can actually start to do something positive for us.
Absolutely. Now, I know you've got another Zoom you have to get onto, so I will let you go. Thanks for coming on tonight and having a chat. Just if people want to get more information about my place, it's myplaceaustralia.org. And I know that you are very into structures in the group, lots of groups within the group, organising food and sustainability issues, educational issues, all that. With all the stuff that's come out in the last 24, 48 hours about UFOs, are you planning on introducing a new kind of group, the UFO group, what we're going to do when we meet the aliens?
No, not at all, mate. I'll let that stuff unfold in the background. We're not going to be taken away from what we need to do. It's the same as the voice argument is kind of look over here while we do this behind you here. Yep. You want your prostate checked? Look at that. Sorry.
Hang on, I'll put the glove on. Yeah.
It's not going to deter us or take us off our focus. And look, we have been kind of at times started to kind of get a little bit out of focus and try and rush some things. Now we've taken a bit of a deep breath and we're stepping back and getting back onto what we're about. And bringing everyone together. And tonight's the Community Action Group Zoom. So we've got coordinators from all around the country going to jump on that Zoom, and we're going to talk about strategy and what people are doing, what successes they've had, and start to get some project teams to develop some more flyers that we can hand out at local markets and in the streets, and when we have our Forest of the Fallen. So yeah, it's full on, full steam ahead, creating these working groups, creating the education that we all need.
Yep, absolutely. Mate, thank you very much for coming on tonight. I'll let you go off and get onto your Zoom. I know how important it is. And if you don't get onto it at the start, you'll be there till midnight. So I know how it goes.
All right, mate. Once again, thank you to all your viewers. Look, it really is up to you guys. It starts here with one person. You just got to change yourself. Don't worry about the rest of the world. And appreciate your support, Carl, and give me the opportunity to jump on tonight and enjoy the rest of your show.
Always, Darren. Thanks, mate. Thanks for having us, and look forward to being back down there with you in Victoria soon.
All right, cheers, mate.
Cheers, buddy. Darren Bergworth from My Place Australia. Please go and check out myplaceaustralia.org if you are interested in getting a My Place happening in your part of the world. All right, let's get on to some other stuff that's been coming out lately. You'll probably be aware that Donald Trump has arrived in Miami for his court case, which will happen later tonight or tomorrow, our time. Interestingly, he will appear in front of a judge that he raised to the bench. Not going to say that the judge would do him any favors for that, but because that would be completely against why Donald Trump actually appointed him. I would think Trump wouldn't appoint somebody like that who's just going to do him a favor. He's not Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama or the dickhead Biden. However, he does have 37 charges that he needs to face. It opens up a very interesting can of worms. You remember Bill Barr? Now, he was one of Trump's appointees there at one stage, Attorney General, I want to say, from memory. He's been coming out on US media in the last couple of days saying Trump is stuffed if any of these charges are stood up. They are very serious charges, yada, 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 yada. Well, those charges relate to documents taken from Mar-a-Lago that were kept in a secure location inside a locked room, inside a very secure facility, inside a very secure facility. However, a search warrant was issued by Merrick Garland or approved by Merrick Garland and others. And of course, they raided Mar-a-Lago. They got boxes and boxes of material, and much of it was already declassified. And of course, as president, he could declassify anything he wanted to from his own documents. Now, whether or not all of that had been declassified at the time, because there were obviously deep state operatives in the White House who may have had the job to do just all that, get all those permissions, but maybe they didn't do it. Maybe this was just something held back and snuck into a box, and we're going to get you on this later down the track. At any rate, it will open up an extremely interesting can of worms, because to prosecute a former US president indicates that you can prosecute a former US president. How many former US presidents are now open to prosecution? How many current US presidents are open to prosecution, given the information of a $5 million bribe to Biden Sr. and another $5 million bribe to Biden Jr. from the Burisma board, all to do with getting rid of that investigator in Ukraine. It is a nasty, nasty little state of affairs that we are all in. But can I tell you, I see a bit of hope coming in the future. We'll get onto that shortly. There are a lot of stories coming out about UFOs. Do you know Hillary Clinton was very interested in UFOs? In fact, she was so interested, a portion of the 30,000 emails that she deleted and then bleach bit cleaned from the server, the illegal server, the private server that she had at her house, she was found to have taken secure documents out of a SCIF, which is a secure environment where you can view certain documents, but you're not allowed to remove any of them. They found evidence that she had removed articles from a SCIF, and those articles had been reproduced on that server, which was open to Chinese intelligence, amongst others. She is relied on the fact that those 30,000 emails were going missing. and wouldn't be found, wouldn't be cleaned. Well, unfortunately for her, those 40 or 33 plus thousand emails were not cleaned entirely by BleachBit off the server, and all of them have been recovered, and I am led to believe have been recovered in their entirety. So if that's the case, that's going to point out some very interesting things. A lot of those 30,000 emails had to do with children. Many more had to do with extraterrestrial technology and reverse engineering of electrical systems or, extraterrestrial technology. Now, the government aren't in a position, no government is in a position to try and do that. They need to get that sort of stuff into universities. So what was Hillary and Obama organizing? They were organizing a magnificent friendship deal with China for a swapping of information. What they would do was quietly, government entities would go to universities and say, listen, we have this technology. We want to have it reverse engineered. We will fund you for this. You will keep it top secret. You will not talk to anybody about it if this is, over and above security level stuff. And when the Obama administration and Clinton got involved, particularly as Secretary of State, those emails, all that information, and more particularly the professors that were funded by the government to do that, were given extra funding from China. Universities that were given these contracts to go and reverse engineer extraterrestrial technology were handed billions of dollars by the Chinese to make sure that funding happened. And this was all part of an integration policy that Obama and Clinton had put together. Now, what this effectively meant was that the Chinese could then take the professor out of the American university and take him back to China to lecture there. They would extract everything they could out of him there, or her, or the team there, and then they would go to work on reconstructing that technology, re-engineering it, reverse engineering it. This has allowed China to make technological advances in 10 years that would have taken 30 years ordinarily. Technological, computing, electrical advancements that the Chinese were unable to make 10 years ago, they are now able to do very easily. And the level of technology that they had 10 years ago was 30 years behind anybody else. So in the space of 10 years, in the space of the Obama administration and Hillary Clinton's involvement, they have been able to have all the knowledge that America has accumulated about extraterrestrials. They have had access to alien flight technology. They have had access to reverse engineered Earth space flight technology, and are now leaders in so many facets of AI generation. Something to be keeping your eyes and ears on, I would think, in the coming times. Now, I have a few things written down here about UFOs, but just before we came on, and part of the reason that I was late in coming on was because I had just found something on Telegram, I think it was, or it's come off Instagram, that does seem to be a very interesting statement made by somebody who has spent some time in Antarctica, a year, in fact. Now, that year was 2010 to 2011. I have listened to about half of this. I haven't heard it all. So I'm sharing it with you now on the basis that take this for what it is. I have had no opportunity to do any research into this. I literally got it sent to me 30 seconds before we went to air. I was trying to record it in and play it back, but I'm just going to play it raw off the screen for you. And this is a statement that has been made clearly to a fairly involved press gallery. I'm not sure exactly how long it runs. If it goes terribly long, I'll pull it out, or if it gets boring, I'll stop it. But have a look at this, and we'll see what this bloke has to tell us about Antarctica.
And this information attention, because it needs to get out to the world. I will start, since we have to be brief. I have already given all pertinent information and supporting documentation to the Senate Intelligence Committee and Arrow. They informed me that all of my information will be recorded for public record and shared with Congress. It is that important. In 2010, I was selected to go down to the South Pole Station in Antarctica for an entire year by Raytheon Polar Services as an employee of a third-party contractor for the National Science Foundation. I function in a dual-role capacity as a tradesman and a firefighter. My responsibilities required me to be more informed than most of my crew and offered me complete access to the facilities. What I learned from this unique experience needs to be shared with the entire world. The technology at the South Pole Station certainly can do what it is presented as its primary purposes, and unfortunately, much more. The IceCube neutrino detector is presented as a passive listening device for the purposes of the science as presented. But I'm going to skip right through the chase, folks. I have provided documentation that proves that the 5,160, what they call DOMs, that are embedded in the ice can actually transmit at 2,047 volts each. That gives us a long list of things to consider. It is effectively a multifaceted directed energy weapons platform that I will list rapidly a few things that it can do. Vehicle detection. We're learning that these off-world craft, on-world craft, ours or other nations, are also emitting neutrinos. So this makes the South Pole Station effectively an air traffic control station for this new level of equipment that nobody's discussing. In addition to the ability to detect neutrinos and the exotic vehicles, I have provided documentation that shows that this is also a system for faster than light communications. In the past, Gary McKinnon has hacked NASA, found the off-world fleet, the list of captains, and it's apparent that if we have faster than light vehicles moving throughout the system, we're going to need faster than light communications. This is that facility. Unfortunately, I have other bad news. The season that I was there, 2010 to 2011, we converted from construction to operations and maintenance in both the elevated station and the detector array. Unfortunately, when they first fired it up, that was when we had the earthquakes in Christchurch, New Zealand. There was 2 incidental shots before they were able to target it correctly. This is an earthquake generating device as well. This is the weapons of war that we have to deal with now and what Raytheon's hiding. There's an ELF system at the South Pole Station that when I arrived, I was told it was off, dismantled, and completely defunct. In my work, I will rapidly just tell you, I had to figure out the circuitry for certain other repairs, and I found that this system is in fact completely energized, up and running, and being utilized with the other systems for nefarious purposes as well. The Atmospheric Research Observatory is in what we call the clean air sector. I witnessed myself a very powerful green laser shooting out of the top of this facility into the cosmos. This, I believe, is a secondary form of long-range communications and or a defense system. I am not saying that we need to be scared of anything that's out there, but please understand the military-industrial complex is happy to invest all of your money in alleviating their fears. A question of power comes into play for all of these facilities that are present. I assure you, I knew what was going on. I knew the load demands of the facility, and all of these new items exceed the demand for the systems that I was presented. I am doing due diligence and research. I believe there is either a secondary power supply there that is either nuclear, that was there prior to the start of the Antarctic Treaty, which prohibits such things, and or that there is some sort of exotic power supply system there that just is not in the verbiage of the treaty, so it negates the responsibility to the parties involved. I think that pretty much covers it for time. If anybody wants to find out more, I have a website where all this information is at. For brevity, I'll wrap it up, but you can go to deciphering.tv. I've documented all of this stuff, and information is available.
Deciphering.tv, I think he said. Well, I could be wrong. Deciphering.tv, but I will go in and check that out later and have it for you tomorrow night. Geothermal, yes. Fish and chips. Raytheon. Yeah, they do have a very large building in Sydney. Very good indeed. Adash, yes, geothermal would be a power source, a very good power source. In fact, I was talking only today with somebody about geothermal power in Australia. We're not known for our geothermal activity. There are certain parts, particularly in the Bowen Basin, where it is possible. New Zealand is very big into geothermal technology, though. Some interesting statements there, particularly about the Christchurch, New Zealand earthquake. An event where they've fired this technology inadvertently, not really knowing what they were doing, and created an earthquake that leveled Christchurch from memory, actually destroyed it. The South Pole is a very interesting place. Antarctica all over is a very interesting place. I have actually applied to go to Antarctica on 3 occasions. They're not going to let me down there, but apparently my kind of radio isn't the kind of radio operator they want. Hardly surprising. I'm not skilled in any other way or reason to go down there. I just have a huge desire, as many of you do too, to go down and see what happens. Would we ever be able to see it? Well, not while these bastards are in control. Certainly not. But there is hope that somewhere down the road that will come our way. And I am genuinely confident that that is going to happen. But it's interesting when you start hearing this sort of information, and there's no guarantee that that guy is for real. This could all be Project Bluebeam, just they're amping us up for the alien invasion. If there was going to be any kind of alien invasion, they would have done it years ago, folks, and we'd probably be all dead. Or food. Maybe we are. We just don't know it yet. I don't know about dead, but food. Raytheon have been involved in this technology, and they are the only company that is being touted at the moment as involved with this sort of technology. Obviously, no time yet to do too much investigation. And yes, one of our favourite sons has done a lot of work with Raytheon in the past. I don't know. Certainly, there would be some interesting questions there to be asked if you were to answer them. I have to try and find someone he talks to get him to ask, eh? Raytheon is everywhere, as somebody else has said, Mick, I think, has said, yeah, Raytheon are everywhere and into everything, from missile development to rockets to God knows everything. And all sorts, I'm sure, of advanced technology. I mean, what are you going to do if you come across some, extraterrestrial technology? You're not going to go and just give it to your local high school, electrical class. That's not going to happen. You are going to take it to the biggest and best companies in the world who are known for their technological resources and their ability to make weapons, discern what could be a weapon, what may not be a weapon, or something that ordinarily wouldn't be a weapon may be turned into one, or to use certain kinds of technology, as that fella just explained, in those bulbs or whatever they are under the surface, to be able to create faster than light transmission and all that sort of stuff. Yes, it would have to be a company like Raytheon that was employed. But once again, I'm pretty confident it would be, I think it would be difficult for it all to get passed off sorry, I've just seen a comment that's come up that's thrown me a little bit. Yeah, I think that there is a lot of questions to be answered about what's going on in Antarctica, and the sooner that we can get there, the better. Australia doesn't seem to play a role, or at least not an open role, in what's going on down there too much. I think we may play a security role. And yes, there are certain scientific experiments, I'm sure, that go down there. There will be some sort of actual science going on that is a face saver for, or a publicity face, if you like, for what's going on down there. But I am absolutely sure that there will be a lot of special forces involvement, a lot of military involvement, and a lot of big-end, high-end technical involvement from companies not necessarily based in Australia. So more, I think, will be released about Antarctica in the coming days. I think a lot more is about to be released about UFOs. There is more information coming to light today of the whistleblower that's come out of the if you like, the intelligence organization or the intelligence heart of the US. He was involved in an area that was associated with the discovery, the removal of, the protection of extraterrestrial technology. He tells us that there are groups, military groups, specifically dedicated to picking up downed UFOs in the world. There are 3 countries running those groups. That would be China, Russia, and America. I don't know why the UK aren't trying to do it, or France either, for that matter. But it seems at the moment it is just the 3 of them, and they run retrieval teams all over the world. And it doesn't matter where the craft crashes; they'll go on to each other's territory to try and claim that. And there have been, apparently, outbreaks of kinetic warfighting at those places. Now, some interesting things that you might want to look back in history on are military accidents that have happened. You remember the Kursk? The Kursk was a Russian nuclear submarine that was mysteriously downed in the Atlantic somewhere, in a very, very deep part of the Atlantic. Sunk to the bottom, killing everybody on board, crushed up to a tin can size. That one, for some reason, immediately came to my memory when all this became aware. There are a number of other military accidents that I'm going to start having a bit of a look at too. Those accidents may or may not be accidents. They might actually be the result of a kinetic connection between these retrieval groups. Might not either, but it's something we're going to take a bit of a look at and try following. All right, moving on. A lot of people have asked in the chat, has anybody heard about Mel Gibson's documentary? So yes, have heard about it. It is the Underground Railway documentary. It's a 4-part docu-series. It was initially meant to start and end in Ukraine. Mel Gibson looks after about 20 Ukrainian children in, I don't know if it's one orphanage or a number of them across Ukraine. When the war broke out, or when the fighting, or when it looked like it was going to break out, Gibson reached out to the guys, Tim Ballard and co, from the Underground Railway to see whether or not he could get those 20 children out of Ukraine and into a safe area where they could obviously be looked after, and potentially maybe even get to out of the Ukraine into America or somewhere else. This is how the documentary started. Where that path led them, I believe, is extremely significant. If you haven't seen the trailer for this yet, let me play it for you now.
This is not a war where people are living by the Geneva Convention. It's a war of terror. Intentionally targeting civilian populations.
We got reports overnight that 3 rockets hit near Kyiv.
Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, as it comes under renewed fire.
For example, the Ukrainians will blow out a bridge, and so the Russians can't get into Kyiv. They can't take the capital, and so out of frustration, they will turn their tanks on innocent civilians, blow up residential centers, blow up apartment buildings.
People bound and executed on the sides of roads. There were kids that were found in cellars that looked like tortured, some missing ears.
It's the only way they can actually occupy here is to terrorize people till we leave them.
We cannot stand by and do nothing. Already there's thousands upon thousands of displaced women and children, and they're destitute. They don't have means to travel or take care of themselves, and so they're going to take opportunities. And the traffickers know that, so the traffickers will provide that opportunity.
Human traffickers are at the borders, taking advantage of the Ukrainian refugee crisis.
We try to discuss, especially women and young girls, to have some preventive measures.
Dangerous propositions.
Annual global profit from human trafficking is around $32
$2 billion.
luring women into slavery and prostitution, and taking children to sell them.
So then we started kind of putting together a team. Aerial Recovery led the effort. Their group is made up of former special ops, so they know exactly how to work in hot zones.
In the first 2 weeks, there was already hundreds of children reported missing from crossing the border.
And we started running operations to go into the bombed out zones. It's very dangerous. Sometimes bombs are going off.
There were mines that we just passed on the side of the road.
There are Russian checkpoints that'll just kill you for being American.
At the same time, this Dutch policeman knows our work, and especially in Latin America and in Mexico, and said, hey, you guys, we just got the craziest lead. A Dutch pedophile who has been charged and is about to stand trial for raping little boys, he took off and he fugitated to Mexico. And he's looking to traffic Ukrainian war victims into Mexico, into his pedophile market. He's famous because he's a political activist trying to make legal sex with children as young as 2 or 3 years old.
Even if you somehow lured a kid in such a thing, a child can't understand what's happening. A child can't say yes to such a thing.
OUR was able to make contact with this suspected child predator.
My undercover persona is introduced to him as a guy who traffics kids out of Ukraine. We have Ukrainian undercover operators for the first time.
And I was supposed to be believable that I'm young, naive.
With makeup, I can make her look like she's 12, and she'll be the bait. We now have a list of his lieutenants, and we don't know where they are. But we think he certainly knows where they are.
And we're focusing in on that location where this group has created a sex hotel.
They produce child rape videos of little boys.
The next 6 hours are critical because this is when all the pieces need to come into play.
This is trafficking, not prostitution. These are victims, not volunteers. This is not something out of a Hollywood movie.
There is a movement right now to desensitize the world to the sexualization of children.
So that is going to be one hell of a docuseries, and it is expected to be released within weeks. Could be days. We just don't know. And obviously, Mel Gibson is going to be flogged in the mainstream media. They will bring up everything he has ever done in the past, be it true or not, I dare say. And Mel admits he is no angel. He is a sinner, and he has very, very defined views on certain things. He makes no apology for it, and he stands his ground. What he is going to do here is break the world open with this documentary. It will show the true, well, I don't know if it'll show the whole extent, but it will show the true extent and potential extent of this child trafficking network around the world. And it is going to end. That's the best thing about it, folks. It's going to end, and it's going to end in a very bad way for those bastards, those evil bastards. I know every one of you watching right now wants to be there for that. I know every one of you would be happy to pull the trigger, push the plunger, or hang on to the end of the rope for each one of these bastards. And who knows? There might be a state lottery. We might be able to get to have a go. Because it's important that the people are part of this process. We are the ones they have done this to, folks. We are the ones suffering, not the elite. It has to end, and it has to end soon. And I think it is. Guam is open for business. Intel has been reported to me in the last 24 hours, 36 hours or so, and I've been able to confirm it, that military tribunals on Gitmo have wrapped up. Now, whether that means that Gitmo is currently full, I don't know. But military trials at Gitmo have wrapped up. The man in charge of those military tribunals at Gitmo has relocated to Guam along with his entire staff. Now, that happened last Friday. We have been watching flights going to Guam from the US and other places, and Australia particularly, for the last 3 weeks. Guam has been the busiest it's ever been in the last 3 weeks. They haven't been flying military aircraft into Guam. They've been chartering 77 passenger jets so that they don't look like it's a huge military operation. Unfortunately, Guam is a military island, so a huge amount of passenger jets flying to Guam all of a sudden looks more weird than a huge amount of military traffic flying to Guam all of a sudden. So these are the things you've got to keep looking out for, folks. This is the discernment we get to use. You can believe it, you can not believe it. It's up to you. But I can tell you, absolutely guaranteed, that the commander of the Guam military tribunals has left. I beg your pardon, of the Gitmo military tribunals has left Guantanamo Bay and is now on Guam. And I believe those hearings are underway. So that is, I think, exceptional news. Exceptional news. I see somebody's asking me a question. Crunch, what's up here? For the only thing, whenever they run into born again believers and they mention Jesus Christ's blood, they will. Well, there's two sides of an argument here. The aliens aren't real, and they're just something that they're going to use to coerce us, or they are. In which case, the blood probably comes in a different way. But I have no doubt. I've believed, and I have believed for years, that extraterrestrials have been on this place much longer, probably, than we have. If they wanted us dead, they would have killed us a long time ago. Instead, they've put us to work. They've made us their batteries. They've made us their food. They've made us their slaves. Now, whether or not that's some kind of extraterrestrial force, or it's just the evil that has come from man's beginnings, I don't know. I don't really care. I care about what the end result is, what it's done to us, and I fight back against that now that we are aware. Yes, there will be some amazing revelations, I'm sure. Some will be true, some will be CGI, some will be pure movie magic. It's up to us to try and figure out what they are going to do. But we need to understand, folks, it is a battle. It is a war, not like any other war that has been fought before. This is not a kinetic war. This is not a shooting war. In certain parts of it is, but for the most part, in the most exposed parts of the world, to the most exposed amount of the human population, there is no war that they currently understand going on, because to work in a 5th or 6th generation warfare environment means you are not operating publicly. You are not firing weapons. You are not blowing the heads off people in streets. You are not driving tanks into people's front yards. It means something very different. This war is based on information. This is an information war, a knowledge war. We are fighting to gain knowledge, and people like me want to talk about it. That hopefully spreads that knowledge that we learn. And yes, I'm very happy to admit I get things wrong. We all get things wrong. I try as best as I can not to tell you untruths, but occasionally something might get through that, I perceive to be one thing, it turns out to be something else. I hope that hasn't been the case. I can't really think of too much. Yes, occasionally we drag out an old video, but that's more to remind people, not to say this is brand new evidence. This is to remind people. One of the things that I've been struggling with recently, and if I had the time to do, I would be very interested in doing, but I just don't, is to go back through my programs and start pulling out the things that we've been discussing for years now. Many of you have only just discovered the Voice of Freedom, but there is a lot of information in previous programs that I've never gone back to. I've always, and I guess this is my radio training coming out of me. Once it goes out the transmitter, you forget about it. You move on to the next day. You can't repeat what you do the next day. All right. You've got to have something new. That's how radio used to work. It doesn't work like that now. Apparently now you do a breakfast show like Kyle and Jackie O's, and then you have them do a night show and an afternoon show and a special show on the weekend. And all these other shows, and no wonder you get paid a huge amount of millions of dollars for doing it. All good luck to you. So yeah, my way of doing things has always been in radio. Well, it's only news on the day that it's news, and then you move on. You go to the next story. But that is wrong. There is a lot of information that people who are new to the Voice of Freedom really should go back and look for. There is a lot of information, particularly on DUMBs, particularly on our government installations and various other areas. This is stuff that we forget because it might be 2 or 3 years ago that one segment, small segment that I talked about in a long program. Some of those programs ran 2 hours or more, I remember. And it might have only been a 1, 2 or 3 minute piece in the middle of it. Some of them might be the whole program. But there are things in previous Voice of Freedom programs that you should be aware of. And I will, if time permits, try and dig some of those out and cut them up. I wish I had kept a timeline of the things I was putting out, because it would make it a lot easier to find. So my apologies for that. I'm not going to stop punching. It is a fight. And I believe it is a fight between good and evil, God and the devil, if you like. And I am very happy to embrace God. I'm very happy to embrace God. We all can still do it. Everybody can repent, folks. That's the thing about God. Now, I was never a great religious kid. I mean, I spent a lot of time in a smock as an altar boy, and then got railroaded off to a Catholic boarding school where I wasn't allowed to don the smock because I wasn't Catholic, which is pretty good too, because you know what happened to some of those kids in smocks in the Catholic churches. But anyway, they would have picked the wrong boy there. Religion has been defiled, mainly by the Vatican, but all forms of religion have been perverted. There is only one good book, that is the Bible. And somebody sent me a passage today that I'm going to end the program on tonight. I think it's a very important statement, and I think it's something that we all need to consider, to ruminate on, to meditate on, and to understand that you do have a choice. You do have a way out of this. If you feel that the darkness is where you like to live, but you know it's going to end badly, then there is a way for you to meet the light. And that is to ask for forgiveness for the sins you have committed. Now, God says he will forgive you. I wouldn't. I'd kill you in the most painful way I could come up with. The slowest, most painful, horrendously violent way I could kill you. That's what I'd do to you. But God, well, I'm learning from God. You've got to forgive. I'm still working on it. But I am working on it. I am working on it. I'm not just saying that. It's important that we all try to work on that, folks, because I know a lot of you feel the same way about me. Fuck them. Kill them all. Let God sort them out. Well, yeah, but that sort of makes us as bad as them. I'm not going to forgive someone for what they've done to the children. If God isn't going to sort them out, if our criminal system is not going to sort it out, if our judicial system is not going to sort it out, then look out. Because it won't be just me that's keen to kill you. There'll be a lot of people. So I'm going to leave you with this passage that was sent to me today. It's from John 3, verses 19 to 21. Light has come into the world, but people love darkness instead of light because their deeds were evil. Everyone who does evil hates the light and will not come into the light for fear that their deeds will be exposed. But whoever lives by the truth comes into the light, so that it may be seen plainly that what they have done has been done in the sight of God. If you believe you can live with what you have done, the sins of your past, in the sight of God, then good luck to you. If you feel, and God sees everything, if you feel you might be lacking there a bit, God gave you his promise. He will forgive you. He sent his Son to take on the sins of man. He will forgive you. You just need to ask, and genuinely ask. And I think the turning point for many people, and I'm talking now about spirituality, not religion. I speak of God because most people understand that term. I would easily call it the Creator as well, and have no difference in the meaning. So, folks, there's good things coming. Are you going to be on the good side? Have you asked God for forgiveness? When was the last time you spoke to God? Maybe you should do that. Given the events of last weekend and the horrible, horrible things that have happened down near Newcastle and Singleton, at this time, there are so many people hurting, so many people all over the country, that God is there to help. All you need to do is ask. It is that simple. So please, folks, give it a go. What can it hurt? I think God's listening, probably now more than ever before, because we are the most awake we've ever been. We are the most we have ever been. We are the many. We are the silent. And we are ready for the fight.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!